Hi, I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer. Midterm elections are less than a week away, and the polling data shows a tough road for Democrats. We'll tell you what the polls show and what we might expect is going to happen next. New documents obtained by The Intercept prove the Department of Homeland Security has been censoring news on social media for years, real serious censorship. And progressive Democrats have backed off their efforts to ask President Biden to seek a diplomatic end to Russia and Ukraine conflict. In other words, don't go to the table, don't try to meet, don't try to amicably work this out. That's what the Democrats' message is. All that and more, it's coming up. Don't go anywhere. America's Lawyer starts right now. The midterm elections are just a few days away, and Democrats, well, they're not exactly enthusiastic about their prospects. Ring of Fire's Farron Cousins joins me to talk about this and many other topics. So, you know, if you read anything right now, it's the same message. The Democrats are in trouble, blah, 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 blah. It's that message that keeps coming through. If I'm looking at it, I think I think the Republicans take the House, Democrats hold on to the Senate. May be wrong. What's your take?
No, I agree with you. I think the House is a foregone conclusion. A couple weeks ago, it really was looking like the Republicans would only have a couple seats advantage. You know, 5, 6 is what the projections were. We're looking at over 20 now.
Yeah, well, I've heard as high as 30.
Yeah, things have definitely shifted in the Republicans' favor in the House. So I think that's almost a giveaway. It's the Senate, really, where we're starting to see a lot of these races tighten. I mean, the polls are changing every day, and that's what's getting so frustrated about what I do every day is you can't talk about a poll because by the time people watch that video, a whole new poll is out that shows the exact opposite. So we don't know.
Well, I mean, first of all, you believe the same thing I do about polling. I think it's basically useless.
Right.
I mean, all you can do is read tea leaves.
It's voodoo at this point.
Yeah, it's voodoo. You look at some numbers and you say, well, here's what it looks like. So I'm hearing the Republicans already beating on their chest. We're going to take the Senate, going to take the House. They might, but guesswork. We've been reading tea leaves a long time. I don't think that's the situation.
And I think once it comes down to it, the Republicans just have so many bad candidates out there. Herschel Walker and Dr. Oz, obviously, at the top of that list. Those are the two everybody's focused on. And I don't know how those two candidates overcome all of the negatives. Even in deep red Republican territory, you still have those Democrats, Warnock and Fetterman, polling above them, not by as much as they were 2 months ago, but they're still ahead by enough where they might be able to have a pretty easy victory.
Problem is independents.
Yeah.
Right now you have independents sitting out there. What is it? 18% of them still haven't made.
Right.
I mean, that's a big number. They still haven't made it. Actually, the number of them that haven't made up their mind is higher than that.
Yeah.
But the independents are going to drive this, and here's the spoiler here. The independents are heavily buying into the idea that the economy sucks, which it does, that crime is out of control, which it is. It's all of the talking points. The border is a problem. Independents are buying into that. Independents in the past really have more favored Democrats than they have Republicans. That's not what it looks like this time to me.
Right. The independents are the people who actually do go out there every day and they say, is my situation better today than it was 2 years ago? And almost every election, no matter who's in charge, the answer to that question is no.
Yeah.
You're not better off than you were 2 years ago. So they're the ones who flip. They say, okay, well, in 2020, I did vote for the Democrats. I thought my situation would get better. Things are not better. I'm looking at my bank account. I'm looking at my paychecks. They're not better. And y'all can get mad all you want about hearing that, but that's the way it is.
Well, that's the problem with doing a show like this. People they just want to hear what they want to hear. In other words, when we do a segment, we say, hey, Democrats may be in trouble. You got these whinies. The whinies, my God, text, Pap's a right-winger. Farron has forsaken the Democrats. They really hate to hear the truth. And it's amazing to me. I mean, you could tell them, you could say, this is not conjecture. This is the truth. But I don't think it's just our audience. I think it's Democrats in general, Republicans in general. They don't want to hear what they disagree with. But that's not real journalism, is it?
No, they don't want to hear the bad news. And the bad news is that reality is showing us right now Democrats are going to lose the House. We're not going to pick up as many Senate seats as we had originally thought. I still think we hold, and I think we gain a seat or two, but we could also lose a couple seats that we did hold. So it's not good news for the Democrats. And then, of course, looking more broadly out there, yes, Biden has done some good things that we have talked about,
We talk
but
about
it's
all the time.
not enough to change these people's financial situation in middle America. It's like the Obama recovery. They came out and told us after he took office and did these things, the economy's great. No, it wasn't. Wall Street was great.
Right.
Corporations were doing
Right.
great. Workers saw their pay decrease.
25 to 30% of Democrats are not enthusiastic about voting at all, although the numbers are startling right now. This could be the biggest turnout we've seen in a long time.
It really could. So I think at this point it really is anything goes. Who knows?
And God forbid we should say something that you don't want to hear, but that's what we do. Exxon just posted record-breaking profits as Americans continue to get gouged at the gas pump. Wow. This story, I think we were doing it before it was a story. I think we were doing it before, before corporate media even thought it was an important issue. Why? Because Exxon advertises in corporate media. BP advertises in corporate media. We were doing this story when we started seeing the very edge of it, right? Corporate media held off as long as they could until it was inescapable. And these numbers are $18 billion in one quarter was the profit for Exxon. At last, Truth Out, who's social media, they had to cover the story. I still haven't seen it fully covered with corporate media. Have you?
No, absolutely not. And it's price gouging.
Yeah.
You can't make record profits during a time of record inflation if you're not artificially inflating your own prices. And that's what we see here. Exxon with $18 billion over 3 months.
Shell.
Chevron is 11.2. Shell almost $10 billion.
$10 billion.
It's
Yeah.
crazy what these companies are pulling in. And this is all just further proof of what Bernie Sanders told us almost a year ago. Put a windfall profits tax in place.
Well, now we talked about that. We literally been talking about it even before Bernie talked about it.
Yeah.
It's an easy solution. The president has a right to do it. Now he's talking about it now.
Finally.
But it's too late. It's too late. I don't know how to put it. Look. They created a bill that was going to address the potential for the windfall tax. It fizzled. Congress isn't going to do it because they're getting so much money from the oil industry. The president held off doing it as long as he can. I'm not even sure he's still sold on the windfall tax. But that's the solution here. I mean, it kind of comes down to the fact that you've gotten zero cooperation from Congress, zero cooperation from the Senate. I think it was Manchin and about 3 others that made the bill fizzle away that was going to say we need to have some windfall tax punishment here, right?
Right, but here's the other thing too. On the other side, the bully pulpit side, Biden could be out there talking about these numbers every day, but instead, what did he do? He went to Saudi Arabia to beg them, please, we need more oil. They laughed in his face and said, we're going to cut oil.
Made him look like an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, made him look like a damn child idiot.
So he has to point out this corruption. He has to talk about it publicly.
Farron, you and I have talked about this before, but the more money you put into the oil industry's hands, the more money you put into the pharmaceutical industry's hands, the more money you put into tech's hands, simply they use that for affluence, influence. They take they take Citizens United to the absolute max, spread out as much as they can. They buy gazillions of lobbyists. Their influence, watch what happens here. They're making so much money, it's going to take a decade to slow down the power that they're going to gain from all this money. $18 billion in one quarter. $10 billion in one quarter, $11 billion. That's what these companies are making.
Yep.
And all they're doing is saying, we kind of got you. It's kind of checkmate because we can buy the media, which they've already done. We can buy more lobbyists, which they've already done. It's just something that the president months ago should have said, damn it, you can't do that. And I'm going to show you why you can't, because you're going to get taxed big time. Elon Musk now owns Twitter, but the investments from Saudi Arabia shouldn't leave you feeling warm and fuzzy. Well, okay, Farron, I saw this, Newsweek, I have almost zero confidence in Newsweek. I mean, zero. It has become nothing more than a polarized propaganda rag. What I hated about this story is they act like this is something new, okay? Saudi Arabia already owned huge interest in Twitter.
They had spies at Twitter.
They had
we
spies.
talked about that.
Yeah, we did a story on it. Not only they had huge shares in Twitter. So they roll it over to him, to Musk, and Newsweek goes crazy about it. Like, oh, this is something new. It's not anything new. They've been owning part of Twitter.
Right. It's definitely not new, but it certainly is terrifying that, the Saudi Royal Holding Company has $2 billion now invested in Twitter. They're the second largest investor behind Elon Musk. And of course, the danger with that, as we have talked about plenty of times, is that Saudi Arabia puts people in jail for their tweets. An American citizen is now in jail in Saudi Arabia for 16 years for criticizing the kingdom on Twitter.
Yeah.
And we can't have these people who will kill you over your tweets having any stake in it. That's the danger.
Okay,
here.
the story we did on this, it was weeks and weeks ago. I don't remember exactly. But part of that story was Twitter knew what was going on.
Yeah.
The folks at Twitter knew that they had Saudi spies that were doing this, and they did nothing about it. And it wasn't Elon Musk. It was the owners before Elon Musk that said, yeah, that's okay because Saudis are giving us so much money. This mutt, the prince, the Saudi prince, who is absolute mutt, a wild bear, they describe him, is a guy that is going to do everything he can to influence the messaging there for $2 billion, just like the government does. We're going to do that story today, just like all these agencies have done with social media. This is a great avenue for the Saudis, isn't it?
It is. And again, I can't stress enough how dangerous this is for the people of Saudi Arabia. Now, I got tons of issues with Musk buying Twitter. I don't want the oligarchs out there holding the public town hall. That's dangerous in and of itself. But having people that will literally kill you for your tweets, that's even more dangerous.
But Farron, do you see the point I'm making? Newsweek acts like this is something new. It's not anything new.
Right.
The Saudis were already in control of Twitter, to where the folks at Twitter knew they had spies, didn't do anything about it, and now this American is in prison for 16 years because of it.
Well, part of the reason this is treated as something new is because the Royal Holding Company came out and bragged about it on Twitter. They put out this big post like, we're now the second. So they're drawing attention to it because now they think, oh, look, we can be open about what we've been doing for years at Twitter. So if they're willing to come out in the open, that, again, super scary because now they feel like we don't have anything to hide.
But is Newsweek suggesting that the folks at Twitter are so damn stupid that they didn't know that the Saudis were already in control of Twitter when they were in charge? You see, you got to call balls and strikes.
Yeah, people don't understand that it's not that they just put the money in.
No,
it's that they already had the investment.
Rolling
and they've just rolled it over.
Yeah, and put in a little more. I'm sure they're going to put in more depending on what Elon Musk does. A new study has found that Americans' trust in the media is at an all-time low. These numbers are terrifying to me when I look at the way that the American public regards corporate media. Okay? Take it from there.
It's obviously, what are we at? Like 35% total that trust the media at all, at any little bit. Yeah. So huge majority says absolutely do not trust the media. But then when you break it down by party, this is what is
crazy.
so stupid to me. 70% of Democrats say, no, we trust the media. Yeah. And then you have, 12% or 14% of Republicans say they trust it. So you got 86% of Republicans say, no, we can't trust the media. And they're the ones consuming the most irresponsible media. Yeah. But 70% of Democrats trusting it, that's concerning because the media is not trustworthy right now.
This article was done by Gallup, and there's several articles that talk about this issue. And when you look at the way they characterize it, it is that Democrats are attracted to polarized politics. It's like you and I talked about earlier in the show, that Democrats want to hear what they want to hear. Whether it's journalism or not, they want to hear. Republicans are the same way, but Republicans have a different attitude about this. They think that the media has become so dysfunctional that there has to be a complete sweep to redo it. But, I mean, as I look at this story, the thing that scares me is corporate media now is figuring out we need to move into social media. How's that affecting shows like ours or Sam Cedar or, you know, David Pakman or TYT? How does it affect us?
Well, what's happened, and this is something you and I had actually talked about a couple years ago, I think, is that you're seeing sites like YouTube push more corporate media, more videos from CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, instead of pushing with their algorithms independent outlets like what we have and Sam and Pakman and everybody else. So we get pushed back. You know,
Right.
the views start to decrease a little bit, the engagement goes down, and it's all because we're not being pushed as much.
We're being throttled back, Farron.
A little, yeah.
I mean, we're going to talk a story in a minute here where we're being throttled back, and that's happening with government. It's happening with corporates that don't like what we have to say. But if you go to the segment, let's take any one of your segments that you do. It could be a segment that it's so specific. Nobody else is talking about that particular segment. Look over to the right where they have listed all of the related stories. They're completely, utterly unrelated.
Yeah.
They are MSNBC talking about, if you're talking about Mars, they're talking about Venus. It's CNN, it's ABC, CBS, it's all of them, because they now are trying to do the same thing to social media that they've done to corporate media.
And they're also trying to pass a law that would
Yes.
make it easier for them to have this consortium
Right.
that basically works with these social media sites to throttle back independent news and push the corporate news.
Look, you own Gallup. Okay, I mean, excuse me. Let's say you own any one of the sites. Pick one. Financially, you do better if you can get MSNBC and CNN and all of the corporates to keep pumping money. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
Your story becomes irrelevant, Farron. The great stories you do. I mean, you do exceptional stories every day. But if I look at your story next to CNN, MSNBC, you got to go 20 stories down before we see anything having to do with Ring of Fire again, or Sam Cedar, or David Pakman, or TYT. They're trying to make us disappear because it's all about money.
Yeah, it is. And that, I think, is why it bothers me when you see the 70% number of 70% Democrats saying, no, we trust the media.
Oh, I know.
Well, you shouldn't. Listen, the media is not outright lying to you. And I think that's a different, well, it depends.
I don't know, Farron.
It depends on your outlet, sure, but the issues we've always had with the media is the corporate influence, the censoring of the stories, the not telling you the whole truth.
Well, it was just like the Newsweek story that we just did. Okay,
Right.
Newsweek.
It's true, but it's also, you're missing so much context.
Right. You would have to read behind to understand that Newsweek basically hustled you on that story to make it sound like the Saudis had just bought into Twitter. Well, no, that was absolutely incorrect. But that's the way this is all being shifted. So somebody who, we're going to say stuff corporate media doesn't say, and we got the whinies who say, I can't believe you said that because I don't want to hear it. It hurts my feelings that you said the Democrats, for example, are getting their butt kicked. Hurts my feelings, and they get mad at us. That's what social media should be doing, because nobody else is doing it.
Yeah.
Documents obtained by The Intercept prove that Department of Homeland Security has been censoring stories with the help of social media outlets in a big way. You want to know who the big players are? These two women right here. One of them is with the government. The other one right here, we think is working for Twitter. No, she's working with the government. And they're making arrangements for the CIA, the FBI, whatever the agency is of the day, to tell them what they can and can't put on social media. This story, I urge everybody should read this story. It's by Lee Fong.
And King Clements.
Exactly. Both of them are extremely talented journalists from The Intercept. I think they're two of the really talented journalists of our time, investigative, along with people like Matt Taibbi. They uncovered it, didn't they?
They did, and just so to give everybody the background here, what we've got, starting in 2018, the government, with the best of intentions, says, well, we got to do something about foreign misinformation. So they give the Department of Homeland Security all of this power. They create what is essentially a disinformation board, although it didn't have that name
It's a
yet.
propaganda board.
Yeah. So they said, look, all we're trying to do, social media outlets, we just want to make sure that you guys know and have the tools to root out this foreign information. Oh, also keep an eye out for terrorists, because we've always got to be on the lookout for that. And then within 2 years, again, it started in 2018, within 2 years, this thing had ballooned into, oh, well, we got to fight COVID misinformation. Noble cause, give them that. There was a ton of misinformation about COVID. And then things went completely off the rails because their true intentions came out. Now you can't talk about Hunter Biden. You can't talk about Ukraine. You can't talk about Afghanistan. These are all in the documents from the Homeland Security.
Let me be more specific about that. You can talk about Afghanistan, but you can't talk about the screw up of the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan. You can talk about Ukraine, but people who disagree with the fact that we should not, people who agree we should not be there at all, the government says, no, we're going to censor that. You can talk about COVID or the vaccine, but you can't talk about the fact that maybe it's not efficacious in some situations. So here it is. Vijay Gad, this is this woman right here with Twitter, meets with, Laura DeMello with the government, and they have an arrangement. And the arrangement is a portal that the government can actually use and change the stories or actually censor the stories. Did I get that right?
You did. They even, literally in the piece here, they have the website that the government goes to log in to their back end of Facebook to go in there. That you're not talking hyperbole. They literally have the website right here.
And you're not talking about supposition, because they have the documents.
Right.
Lee Fang, they actually got the documents.
Well, and here's the scariest part too. Okay, so you've got Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Discord, Wikipedia, Microsoft, LinkedIn, Verizon Media. They're having monthly meetings. Currently, still monthly meetings with the FBI, the CIA, and the CISA.
Yeah.
So they're still meeting.
Talk about with the CISA. Viewers may not know what.
Yeah, that is essentially what the DHS had created. That's the new branch.
The cyber branch.
Yeah, that deals with, of course, cyber terrorism, as they call it.
Yeah.
But it's censoring stories here in the U.S. So that's the separate branch, and it continues to grow, continues to get more funding. But they're still having monthly meetings, like as of now, with these people. This isn't something that came to an end.
And we know this. I promise you, our stories, when we do them on, you and I disagree. I think Ukraine is insane. We shouldn't be there. But they'll throttle that back. I'm telling you, that's what they do with that. Or when we talk about, how Afghanistan was mismanaged on withdrawal, they'll throttle that back. That's what these folks have agreed to let happen. And nobody seems to care. Maybe they don't know about it, but these emails, this is not Klipperstein and Lee Fang making this up. This is the product of AG. He's running for AG, Eric Schmidt, and he's running Missouri. He started this because he had gotten the leak that this was going on. So he starts putting their feet to the fire. He starts actually getting the material that says, we used to just talk about it, but now we're seeing it face to face. And if you do a story that they don't like, or I do a story they don't like, or Lee Fang does, or Sam Seder does, or David Pakman does, or TYT does, they throttle it back. Because people like this woman right here, this Gad woman, gives them permission to do that. She's gone, by the way. Elon Musk fired her, thank God.
But look, this is a very serious issue. And what we have always said, you and I sitting right here, we have talked about always with the slippery slope. Because this program, like I said, they started with the best of intentions. But we all know that's never how it stays. Just like the Patriot Act. Oh no, we gotta spy on the terrorists and we're gonna keep you safe, and then 2 days later, yeah, we're tapping into your phone too. Sorry, it's what happens. This is the same thing. It's the same kind of program.
Let me give you the latest. Joe Biden, he put together his idea of this, This is his team. The team is called the Misinformation, Disinformation, and Malinformation Team. And they are the people that work with women like this and people like this that say, yeah, it's the new norm in America because nobody gives a damn. It's okay.
Well, that actually didn't end up happening. That's what he tried to do, but remember there was such huge public backlash that finally, like 6 months after he announced it, he said, okay, we're not going to do it. But he doesn't need to do it because you've already got it in place.
We did a half dozen stories on it. And there was so much pressure because it was nothing more than a propaganda team that he had assembled. And this nutcase woman that was person that was supposed to be running it was crazy as a March hare. Pfizer has announced that they'll be price gouging Americans next year by raising the COVID vaccine price by 10,000%. What a deal. Pick it up.
The United States taxpayers paid for the development of these vaccines.
Right.
The government gave them our tax dollars and said, for the love of God, develop vaccines. We've got to get over this pandemic. And they did it. And now they hold the patents. We can't do anything about that because they didn't say these are going to be open source. And now Pfizer says, well, since the pandemic's died down, starting in January, even though it costs us $1.18 to produce it, we're going to sell it for $100+ per vial, per shot. $100.
10,000% markup. 10,000%. Now, you've done stories, and I've done stories, we've done them together, where we talk about that's the new norm in the pharmaceutical industry. Here, the argument that it's about research and development is completely utter nonsense. It has nothing to do with, has nothing at all to do with research and development. It doesn't even have to do with marketing. They don't have to market. The government is marketing for them all over the world. They're doing the marketing. So this is just, hey, baby, let's just put it in our pockets. It costs them $1. To make a vial of vaccine costs them $1. You just pointed out that they're selling it for as high as $130 per vial.
And like you said, it all goes right into their pockets. The vaccines are developed. They know that we're probably living in a post-COVID world where you have to get a booster every year, maybe twice a year, just like a flu shot.
Insurance is going to pay it. We'll just pass that on. Medicare is going to pay it. Medicaid's going to pay it.
And you know, the story I always come back to is one story that you told about a deposition you took over in Europe.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you asked them, just a curiosity, why are you only charging them X amount here, but you're charging, 10 times that in America? And the answer was, because we can. Because we can.
Those are his exact words. He looked across the table. This is a product that was killing people all over the world. And this was like an aside. I thought, well, I got a couple minutes. Let me find out. I never dreamed he would say, I'm charging 300% more because we can in America. That's what's happening right here.
That is, it's because we can.
And the government could do something about it. Joe Biden could do something. Trump could have done something. Clinton could have done something. Obama could have done something. Bush could have done something. But they refused to do it because the pharmaceutical industry owns, bought and paid for Washington, D.C. Progressive Democrats recently withdrew a letter to the President, Biden, that said, that urged him to seek a diplomatic end to the Russian-Ukraine conflict. The letter from the Democrats was, Joe, let's try to sit down and talk about this. Let's try some diplomacy. That's all they said. You ought to go over there and we ought to try some. Tell me what happened when these little handful of Democrats made that suggestion.
Right, it was the Progressive Caucus, the real progressives.
Real progressives, the ones we talk about that we need to put in Washington all the time.
And they basically got slapped by the Democratic leadership saying, how dare you try to question what it is we're doing here. And what really means is, how dare you piss off our defense contractor funders.
Right.
Stop that. You're going to make them mad and we're going to lose money right before the midterms.
Right.
There was nothing wrong with this letter.
Look, Farron, that is not, look, your theories are always right on. I mean, when you say, what you just said, why did it happen? Because we're close to election. The weapons industry was very concerned that this is going to make our defense contractors really mad. You just said that. My guess is that you had not even seen the other dozen articles that talk about that.
I had not.
I believe that. But the point is, that's why it happened. So the president, rather than sitting down saying, we ought to talk to these folks before we engage in nuclear frigging war, maybe we ought to talk to them. And the Democrats that made that suggestion were shamed. I mean, absolutely shamed.
Well, and the Washington Post, refers to as a giant misstep. It's not a giant misstep to say, hey, instead of getting people killed, what if we sat down and talked, used actual diplomacy?
Yeah.
Right? We're not living in a Bay of Pigs situation anymore, and we shouldn't be.
Okay.
We've evolved.
Think about that. Washington Post. What's the connection? Bezos, huge war contractor.
Yep.
Okay, so they take the position, what a stupid thing to say. You mean you really want to sit down and work it out before we start a nuclear conflict? How stupid. That's the Washington Post saying that. Farron, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but all of these segments are going to be available this coming week right here on this channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at America's Lawyer. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer, where we tell you the stories that corporate media won't tell you because their advertisers won't let them, or because their political connections are so polarized that they can't allow for it. We'll see you next time.